Thank you for joining me on the show today. This is the Now Talks, a collection of inspiring personal stories and leadership lessons from some of the world's most iconic leaders. It is the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. My name is Dr. Tina Allton, and I'm your host for today and the coming weeks. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Now Woman Talks, which is the leadership podcast for every female leader. This week is Christmas week, and I want to talk to us about winning, and others will say winning or losing, or heads and tails, if you want to call it that way. But I believe that as leaders, there's no really heads and tails. There is always a win, whether it's in the heads or it's win in the tails, because you can always learn something from an experience. You can always learn something from an event or anything that happens. So it's not about winning or losing. It's about what can you learn out of the situation. So this week, I've been reading a book by one of my mentors, John C. Maxwell, and it talks about heads you win, tails you win. And so it starts off by looking at, there's a leader called David. And the story goes that, David led with the integrity of his heart, which is a pure heart, and guided, the people. So he led the people that he was called to be a leader over with the integrity of his heart, and guided them by the skillfulness of his hands. And therefore, it means that if you think of that as a two-sided coin, right? You need both sides to make the coin. And it's the same thing when it comes to being a leader, that you need to have integrity and skill. So integrity and competence, you cannot have one without the other. You can't be a person of great integrity and have very little competency or skill as a leader. Likewise, you can't be a really well-skilled or competent leader and have no integrity. I think, when we all are exposed to leadership, we can tell a leader who has integrity and a leader who does not have integrity. So every leader needs both. You need to have a heart that is full of integrity, as well as the skill, the art, the competency that it takes in order to lead. If you don't have either of these, it's more or less the recipe for failure, right? And so with that in mind, I want us to look at, in this book that I'm reading, like 11 keys to become an excellent leader, 11 keys that would really help you to be a leader of excellence. And it really helps. It's designed to help you develop your leadership skills, your leadership competencies, if you will. So number one, but not necessarily in any specific order, is the first thing that we must consider as leaders, even as we're winding down this year and looking ahead towards 2023. I want us to think about this, value excellence. Do you really place any value on excellency, doing things in excellence? Or are you a leader who's like, excellence is not about perfection, but excellence is doing something to the very best of your ability, where you think through things, you give thoughts to a process, you give thoughts to, maybe the people that are coming, whether it's an event, let's say, for example, or a presentation or a talk, whatever it is that you've got to do as a leader. Do you take time and think through and do it with excellence, or you just do things anyhow? That's a thought. The second thing is not settle for average. Why is it that sometimes we will just settle for average, even though we know full well that we deserve more, we deserve better? And I think this was one of the courses that the master classes that we run in 2021 on stop self-sabotage, how to stop self-sabotage. And one of the key ways in which we sabotage ourselves, particularly as women, is by settling for average, and that can be in the area of relationships, that can be in the area of maybe our jobs that we're doing, or, situations that we find ourselves in, or deals or negotiation, whatever it is that that you deserve more. You know that there is more. There's potential in you, that you can go more. You can go, you can stretch yourself. You can achieve more. And yet somehow we settle for average. And so as a leader, I want to encourage you, do not settle for average. The next thing, or number 3, is pay attention to detail. How many times have you walked into a place, or, showed up at a meeting, and you immediately know that the leader, or the, whoever's hosting you for the meeting, or whatever it is that, for whatever it is that, let's say for a meeting, that the meeting, they haven't actually paid any attention to any detail, right? It's very easy for us to tell. It's very evident for everybody to recognize that attention has not been paid to the details. So as leaders, it is very, very important that you pay attention to the detail. And number 4 is remain committed to what really matters. Now, not everything that matters, not everything that, you see matters. And there is this saying that those that matter don't mind, and those that mind don't matter, right? And therefore, as leaders, it's very, very crucial. It's absolutely crucial that you're committed to what really matters. How do you do that? It's by recognizing, okay, what is the process that is involved in XYZ? And then once you have reviewed the process, because for everything, there is a process to arriving at every result that we desire, every goal, every achievement, everything. Every end result, end product, there is a process to get in there. So you have to look at the process. Are there people that are required to be, to take responsibility for some of those, pieces? You have to review all of these things, and then be really committed to what really does matter. Paying attention and being committed to what matters means that, number 1, you don't lose focus. Number 2, you don't get drawn into any unnecessary drama. Number 3 is that you're able to then actually, like we've already talked about, pay attention to the detail, not settle for average, and place value on excellence. Number 5 is display integrity and sound ethics. Now, leadership is not easy. Leadership requires making some really hard decisions, really difficult decisions sometimes. And you can think of it, starting from the home when you have kids, right? The decisions you have to make for them. Sometimes it's helping them choose subjects for exams, or, do they go out? Do they not go out? There's so many decisions that we have to make as leaders, but you have to make them, because every time you fail to make a decision, there is a consequence, right? Every decision comes with a choice, whether you make it or you don't make it. And there is a consequence attached to every decision. And so you have to be a leader that really works with integrity. That's what it's saying, display integrity and sound ethics. And I think we all know when somebody is not being ethical, right? So you have to really, it's almost like, going to the gym where you exercise some muscle. If you want to really, my son would say, buff arms or legs or whatever it is, you have to exercise that muscle, that part of your body every day. One day in the gym is not gonna make it happen. 2 days is not gonna happen. Even 1 month is not gonna happen. But as you do it on a daily basis, being consistent and be committed to the process, that's when it happens, right? That's where all the hard work that's gone into the gym begin to show. It's the same thing with integrity and being ethical. It's in the daily choices. It's in the daily actions. It's in your daily habits. It's not just when you arrive at the office or, wherever you are seen as a leader. It's in your every single day choices and decisions and actions and habits, and even your thought process. All of these combined is where you begin to build that attitude and that becoming that person of integrity and sound ethics. Number 6 is show genuine respect for others. How often have you, you know, I think one of the places that really this happens often is at the restaurant. We go to the restaurant, maybe it's the servers, you can talk, but no, you have to display sound, like real genuine respect for others. And I think my very good friend Mark Whitaker from Coca-Cola really talks and brings home this message of how do we show respect for others. So if you haven't listened to it, I recommend you go back to the podcast. It's called Leads. Every leader's a mandate, if you will, the Monday for every leader. The podcast is called Leads, Leads. And you have to listen to that because Mark really brings home the message very, very clearly for us with really great examples on how we can actually genuinely show respect for others. Number 7 is go the second mile. You have to stretch yourself. Leadership requires that every day stretching yourself, every day stretching yourself, every day. Sometimes, depending on what that is, can really actually lead to burnout. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about where you have to stretch yourself, for somebody else, for somebody on your team, or for somebody you're doing a deal with. You have to be the leader that goes the second mile. Be willing to extend yourself to others. Be willing to make yourself available to others. Be willing to truly go the second mile. I don't know what the second mile is that is required, for you in this season at this time. But I think as a leader, we all know when we come to that point that we have to go that second mile. And so I want to encourage you that you be the leader that goes the second mile. Number 8 is demonstrating consistency. Consistency is where you're at it on a daily basis. Every day it's in the action. Every day it's in your habits. Every day is in how you speak, how you show up, right? Your thought process. Every single day you show up the same you, not showing up, in different ways. And I'm sure that, I think it's very easy for all of us to recognize that that person was very different when I met them, in this so and so environment versus when I met them here. Now, when that happens as a leader, you are in trouble. That's a huge warning sign. So as leaders, we have to be a leader that demonstrates consistency. You have to consistently show up every single day, right? Number 9, never stop improving. What do I mean by never stop improving? Never stop learning. The only way you can improve is knowing where to improve, because there is always room for any of us to improve, to be better, to grow, to do more than, what we were doing yesterday, right? I'm not talking about competing with other people, but really improving yourself. And the best way to do that is to be committed to self growth, where you yourself are growing, because you cannot lead anyone else further than where you have been yourself. And the only way to keep going further and further and further is by improving yourself. And that also doesn't mean you're not enough. I always believe that we're all born enough. We're all born wired to do good and greater works. And as we continue every day in our choices, in our thought process, in our habits, in our actions, and how we show up, we are improving on a daily basis. Number 10 is always give 100%. How many times have you heard, let's say marriage couples like, oh, it's going to be 50-50. 50-50 means that, the day that you're not well, there's only 50%. And when something's 50%, if you think of the seesaw, right? When you have to stand on the seesaw, and you have to imagine this when you're standing on the seesaw with your legs spread apart, you have to almost like stand in a certain way in order to keep that balance. Now, that position is not even balanced, because it takes the slightest tip for you to lose your balance and fall off. And before you know, the seesaw is either up or one end is down. But you have to, as a leader, you always have to give 100%. You always have to show up 100%, so that even if those that you're working with or moving with or tracking with or whatever it is cannot bring their 100%, because some days you're not always going to be at your very best. There's this book, The Four Agreements, where it's called The Four Agreements, where it talks that one of the four agreements is always do your best, right? But we know that sometimes when you're sick, your best is not going to be like 100%, right? And so you have to be, as long as you're not sick, or maybe, something really horrible or traumatic is going on that is impacting you emotionally. But we're all human beings. And so we all get impacted sometimes, somehow, some more so to a larger extent than the others. But you always want to be, when you're not in that, situation, emotionally impacted or any sick or anything, then you want to be a leader that shows up and give 100%, because then you can always ensure that there is balance, there's harmony, there's peace, there is, joy, excitement, there's real sense of unity, if you will, around you as a leader. And finally, the 11th thing that allows you to be a leader that leads with your heart, but also has, great competency, that is skill to lead people, is make excellence a lifestyle. And I think we've already talked about excellence. Make excellence your lifestyle. I'm not talking about perfection, but excellence is where you think about the details, where you pay attention to what matters, where you're focused, you're committed. You respect other people, you go the second mile, you demonstrate consistency, you show up consistently, constantly, you don't stop improving yourself, and you always give you 100%. And I'm sure there is many more that I want to invite to detail, to add to this, maybe in the comment section as you're listening, is that make excellence a lifestyle. And so that said, I want you to perhaps, I want to just go through what I've mentioned here. Which of these keys stand out most to you, right? And I've given you 11 keys here as you think about your leadership in 2022. And as you're looking forward to 2023, be a leader that values excellence. Don't settle for average. Pay attention to detail. Remain committed to what really matters. Display integrity and sound ethics. Show genuine respect for others. Go the second mile. Demonstrate consistency. Never, ever, ever stop improving. Always give your 100%. And in addition, to underpin all of this, the greatest foundation and key you can have as a leader is to make excellence a lifestyle. And so that, my dear friends, brings us to the end of our conversation this week. And I hope that it's been great and you have some keys to take out of this. Until I come your way next week, remember that as a leader, you are the coin with two sides, a heads and a tails, neither of which means, neither of which is bad. And the heads, the two-sided coin, requires that you lead with, outwardly with skill, with competency, and inwardly with integrity. With having one without the other leads to failure. And so I wish you all the very best. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas, and I can't wait to bring you some more conversations in next week's edition. Take care. God bless you, and Merry Christmas. And that's all for this week. You've been listening to Dr. Tina Allton with the Now Talks, the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. All that remains is for me to say have a fantastic week, stay safe, and reach out if you need any help now at nationsofwomen.com. Until next time, enjoy the pursuit of your potential, and remember, now is your time.